Um, Hi everybody, I'm Caterina. I'm part of the developer advocacy team at Atlassian, and today I'm going to talk to you about customizing Jira Service Management with Forge. Before we start, just a quick overview for the one of you that are not familiar with Forge about what Forge is. Forge is a serverless app development platform by Atlassian. Apps that are hosted on Forge are hosted by Atlassian directly, so you don't need to provide your own infrastructure when building your apps on Forge. It's also a secure platform because being a function as a service platform, it takes care of authentication, identity, and also multi-tenancy for you. When talking about customizing Jira Service Management, there is a multitude of extension points in the user interface that you can leverage in Jira Service Management. So, for example, I have some screenshots here and some options here of what's available. You can customize the customer's portal page, so you could be adding a header, a footer on that page, but you could also change the request creation screen by adding new fields there, or even customizing the queue page, which is the page where your agents or support team will go to check what they need to work on next. There are even more options, so you could be customizing the portal user menu, which is that icon that is available in the top right of the screen, and when you click on it, it shows up like a few options, and you could be adding an entry item there, and when you click on that, a pop-up will be opened as the one that we see on the right side of the screen. But you could also be customizing the portal request itself, so a request that has been submitted by a customer by adding an area, some text at the bottom or on the right side of the screen. So what are we building today? So today we will be adding a banner in the Help Center, and this will indicate that new requests might need to wait because the support team is currently busy with a good amount of requests, so a higher volume of tickets than expected. This is going to be a hands-on training, so I would love if you could follow along with me and see the results in a live site. As a reminder, this training has been designed for a beginner audience. So if this is your first time building with Forge, so maybe this week was the first time you did a few workshops, this training is for you. But it's also good if you've never customized the Jira Service Desk, Jira Service Management. Hopefully you will learn something and see something new. So let's get started. Some prerequisites for this session. So I have them here on this. I'll give you a few minutes in a second to check that everything is set up. But what the prerequisites are the Forge CLI, so the command line interface, and the Forge CLI is used for building and for deploying Forge apps. Because we are going to be using to be seeing the results in a live site. There is also a cloud developer site that you'll need for that, and a cloud developer site is a free site, a free Jira Confluence site that you can use for testing your apps. And this is free, and it allows a few users to work with you on that as well. There is a repository that we will be working from. So let's clone this repository, which will be the starting point for our training today. Once you have it, make sure you browse to that folder. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so the next command that we will be running is the Forge register one. And Forge register is used to register the app to your developer account. And when running this command, it's also going to generate a unique identifier for your app, which we'll be seeing in a few minutes. Of course, cloning an app is just one way to get started. There is also an option to start from scratch, and we will be seeing that in a few minutes. So for the time being, let's run the Forge register command, and this is going to ask us to give a name to our app. So let's just say Forge JSM. When running Forge register, as you can see, there is a prompt which says that 3 environments have been created. So that's development, staging, and production. For the purpose of our training today, we will only be using development, but if you plan to create an app which will be used in production, make sure to also deploy it in production. The development environment is the default one, which is used by any command. So if you are not specifying any environment, the development one is the one that is going to be used. So in our training today, we are creating an app from this repository, but if you want to start from scratch creating your app, there is also a command which is called Forge create, and when you run it, it's going to give you some options, and you can select a category, and then based on the category that you select, it's also going to present some templates. So even when starting from scratch via the CLI, you'll have the option to start from some sample code that might help you to get started. I'll cancel this because this is not what we are going to do today, but I wanted to show it to you. Because we are starting from a repository, we also need to make sure that we install the dependencies that we need. So let's run npm install. This was pretty fast. And the next command that we want to run is we want to deploy the app. So deploying an app means building it, compiling it, and deploying your code to the environment that the command is run against. So in our case, the development environment. Running a Forge deploy also reports any compilation errors because it runs a lint on the code. So let's run it. Here we can see the linting. There is also a dedicated command that you could be running. So you could just be running Forge lint for that. Okay, and now we can see that our app has been deployed to the development environment. The next step is to install the app. So we want to install the app on our test site. And in our case, we are going to select Jira. So Jira Service Management. If you want to use an app for Jira Service Management, the product to select is Jira. And then here you are going to enter your test site. So this is the one that I'm using. Yours will be different, but it will still end with Atlassian.net. This is showing us which permissions will be associated with this app, and let's select yes to continue. And this is installing the development environment of our app to our site. Okay, so and now we got the confirmation that the app has been installed. This command can only be executed by an admin of another site, so I couldn't be installing the app in this way to any of your sites. So now that the app is installed, let's go to the service management site that we have, and let's check the app. So there it is. And if I now refresh, so this is the same URL on my site, we can see that there is an allow access now allow access prompt here, and this is related to the app. So we now need as users to allow access to the app. Here we can see the permissions that the app has. Let's accept them. And now the app is loaded, and there is this additional text that is part of the app, which says our support team is ready and excited to help. And this is what we want to change based on the number of tickets that are currently open. This text that you see here is a UI kit component. So for the purpose of this training, we will be using UI kit, and there are three main concepts when working with a UI kit: components, hooks, and event handlers. Components are the visual elements for constructing the user interface. Hooks and event handlers instead are used to enable the app to handle user interaction and to return the views dynamically. Today we will only be using hooks. These concepts are similar to the React ones, so if you are familiar with React, you might recognize these terms. UI Kit is perfect for simple use cases, but if you have some more complex use cases, there are some other options with Forge, and in particular, there is the option to use a custom UI. Let's now expand the folder structure of our repository. So I want to point out this file, which is the index.jsx, and this is where our components, our UI kit components are written. Components are always written using a syntax that is called JSX and is similar to writing HTML. So here we have the text that is currently displayed, and you can see our text component there, and this is the one that we will be displaying in a few minutes, and you can see that there are a few other components there. The main component for this app is the portal header that you'll find at line 118, and this is used within the run function. So I mentioned that this is similar to React, but there is a difference. React apps are rendered and executed on the client side, while Forge apps, they run on a function as a service platform, and they are executed on the server side. The other important file that we will be working with today is the manifest file. So the manifest describes the Forge app, and it includes modules, permissions, and it's a YAML file. You can see here also the app ID. So this value is going to be different in your repository if you run the Forge register. That's what generated a different ID for your app. So every app will have a different ID. In the folder structure, because this is a Node.js project, we also have the package.json and the package.lock.json files. Another important thing for you today, the solutions for our exercises are available in this solutions folder. So for all the exercises, so these two files, the index.js and the manifest.yaml, contain the final state of all our exercises. So you can go there and check them out as a reference. There are also some extra extension exercises that you could be trying to do if after this training is over. So the exercises are defined at the end of the index.jsx file, and the solutions are available one by one within this folder. But for today, for what I'm going to be presenting, the solutions are in these two files directly in the solutions folder. Okay, so we will now be starting the Forge tunnel. Tunneling in Forge means that the app code is run locally, so it's run on your machine via the Forge CLI. A tunnel can be started for any app that has been deployed and installed on a site. And there are two main advantages of using the tunnel. So the first one is that it provides real-time logging. So by inserting console.log in your code, you will see the output directly in your console. But and the second advantage is that the tunnel also provides a fast turnaround for changes. In fact, the tunnel watches for code changes and rebuilds the app whenever there is one. So you don't need to redeploy the app. You can just check the changes directly when the tunnel is active. Keeping in mind that the tunnel only watches for changes in the code. So if you change the manifest file, you'll need to redeploy the app. So let's run it. We can also see this prompt here, which says that the requests are now made to the local machine, and that this is available for development environment apps, and it's only going to show the requests for our users. Okay, so once we get to the point of listening for requests, if we refresh the page, we'll see the request, the invocation of our request, and if I go to the top of here, our index.jsx file, we'll see the log line that has been added using console.log. Before we go to the first exercise, I also want to show you the usage of useState. So useState is one of the UIKit hooks, and it's used to add and update the local state of a component. I've also added here the link to the documentation if you want to check it out. And normally the use state is used with a variable which stores the value of the local state, and it also returns a function which is a function that can be used to update that value. In our case today, we are only going to set the value once at every refresh, so we didn't define a function for updating the local state. Cool. So let's move on. So we touched earlier briefly about this, the components that we have available, and I just wanted to add at this stage that there is also the fragment component. And the fragment component is a bit of a special case, and it is required because each function that you define can only return one top-level component. So if we didn't have the fragment defined here and just returned the heading and the text, we would be running into an error. While the fragment wrapping these two components allows us to have a definition set up in this way. Another small thing that I realized while preparing the training is that you can also return a null. So if you think that this text maybe it's too much and you don't want it on these pages, you could just be returning null, and that's a valid return value as well. So the first exercise is really for you to familiarize yourself with the code and the tunnel and how this works. So as you can see, now we have this message about the support team being ready to help, and that's available here. And what I would like us to do right now is to just display the other value instead. So have a look at the code, check out where we have this logic defined, and try to show the other fragments. Probably, hopefully, a simple exercise, and there were a few ways to change that, but I'll just use the super simple one, which is I'm just going to change this 500 into 3. For the purpose of this training, I don't have that many requests on my site, so I'll just change this to 3, and this considering that the value of open tickets was 5 as it was logged, this will change the components that are being displayed. So I've changed that and saved it. And now that I did that, because I have the tunnel running, you can see that the tunnel detected the change and is bundling and redeploying the version of the app, so that we will be able to see the changes just by refreshing the page with no need to perform a Forge deploy. And here we have our new text. Cool. So let's So when you were checking the code, you probably noticed that there was this hard-coded return value. So that was just for the flow of the training. Let's remove it. We don't really need it. And the exercise 2 is about actually reading the list of service tasks that are available in this site. So, so the list of projects here, or like what we see here. So in my example, I have two. A small note, like you might be hearing me saying service desk or a service management. And that's because Service Desk used to be the name of Jira Service Management before it's been rebranded last year. So the way we are going to retrieve the number of service tasks is by running a request Jira command and by calling a REST API. So the request Jira is what we use to make requests to the product API, and we will be running it as user in this case, so that we will only be retrieving the portals or the service desk projects that the specific user that is logged in has access to. While if we were to use as app, which means that the request will be running as the app user, all the portals that are available in a site will be displayed. So there is always this differentiation and this option that you have. It's also important to talk for just a quick minute about the route. So route is always required when you perform a request to the product, and it's a tagged template function, and it runs encode URI component. By doing that, it helps preventing security vulnerabilities. So you will be using request Jira when you are making requests on Jira, or request Confluence if you are making requests on Confluence. So going back to the exercise, our exercise number 2 here requires to find the REST API to get the list of all the service tasks and paste it there. Keep in mind that there might be an error there or something else that you'll need to do, and that's also part of exercise 3. So we will be doing that as well as part of exercise 3. So let me open the link to the hint here, and what I want to show you here is that the REST API that we are going to use is the REST Service Task API, Service Task. So as it is defined there in the first line, or here as well. So something that I wanted to point out is that when working with Jira, there is a set of common APIs that you can use. Like if you want to run a JQL, there is so that's available at the Jira Cloud platform APIs, and then there are a set of APIs that are specific for each flavor of the product. So that's why you see in this URL the service desk path And you can also see here in the APIs that it says in the title Jira Service Management, which is the new name. So this is something to keep in mind because if you are looking for some service desk specific APIs, they will be available in a different structure of the API site. The other important aspect to consider when looking at APIs are the scopes or the permissions that are required when working with Forge. We always use the auth20 scopes, and in particular, we want to use the classic ones. So in this case, we want to use the read service desk request. So let's add the API here. So it's REST service desk API service desk, and let's save it. We can see that the linting is running. And this is actually failing. And this is failing because in our manifest, we don't have the required permissions set up. So let's not fix it now. Let's go to exercise 3 and fix it as part of that. Yeah, so because we will be changing the manifest, the tunnel is not going to be watching for changes there. So let's just kill the manifest, and I just do Control C to quit. Okay, and let's go to the manifest. So the exercise 3 here is about updating the permissions, and in particular removing a permission that we don't need. It's always important to only have the permissions that are really needed, and for some reasons this ended up in this manifest, but it's not really needed, so let's remove it. We will be removing it together. So there it is. And let's also fix the error that we were seeing here. We can either add the additional scope directly to the manifest, so we could just be copying and pasting it. Thank you, Forge Tunnel, for giving us the indication of which scope we needed to run, or we can just run the Forge lint fix command. So let's run that so we can demonstrate this behavior. So the Forge lint can be used just to check for errors, or it can also be used with the fix option to fix any errors that it finds. So let's run this. Oh, I should have. Oh. Okay, I did a mistake here. Let me reopen the. Okay, so yeah, the file wasn't saved, so I will need to remove the additional permission, which was exercise 4 manually, but we can see that read service desk request was added by the command. I didn't add that. Cool, so that's saved. So for exercise 4, we will be going back to the index.jsx, and it's available there. Let me just restart the tunnel before I give you a few more details about our exercise 4. So the next exercise is about adding an additional clause to our JQL. So right now we are returning all issues for all the projects that we have available. But we only really want the issues that are open. So the exercise 4 is about modifying our JQL clause to query only the issues that are still open. And there is a hint there on how to do that. Oh yeah, and yeah, I think Anna, you want to tell me that I didn't deploy the app, and that's what the problem is about. Oh yeah, and okay, yes, so that was the problem. So you probably want to follow me. Apologies about that. So after we change the manifest, we have to redeploy the app, and because we actually change the scopes, the permissions, we also need to run a Forge install upgrade. I'll just send it to you as well. And it's showing me the sites where my app was installed, and it's asking me to select which ones I want to upgrade. I only have one, so I'll just enter, and it's telling me that an additional scope has been added, and it's asking for confirmation. So this error, which wasn't really planned as part of the training, was happening because the request Jira was not succeeding because of the missing scopes. So let me start the tunnel anyway. So, and while the tunnel is restarting, if I refresh the page because of the additional permissions, I'll need to allow access again. So let's do that. Okay, so now we can see that here that the project keys are getting logged, so they've been retrieved, and the number of issues has been retrieved using JQL, and it's done using the project keys that are available in my site. And we currently have 7, and this is the total number of issues. How do we solve for this? So the way we do this is there is a special keyword which is status category, and if we say status category is different from done, and then do an end. So maybe I'll just paste this in here. This is going to only return the issues that are still open, regardless of how the workflows are defined. So status category is independent from the names of the workflows. It's an additional attribute that you can define to specify if a ticket is still in progress or has been closed. So let me save this. So the tunnel detected the change, and now let's refresh the page. So we had 7 tickets earlier, and now we should have 6 because one of the tickets is closed in my portal. It might be exactly the same number for you if you didn't close any tickets yet. One thing that I also want to point out is that this is the API that we are calling. So it's the search API, and this is the related documentation. And as I was sharing earlier, this is part of the Jira platform, one of the Jira platform area. So always make sure to check the Jira platform APIs for general functions, but if you're looking for something that is specific to a flavor of Jira, keep in mind that it might be in a different folder, in a different structure, in a different area of our website. Earlier, we were running the API using as user, while in this case, we are running it using as app, because if we run it using as user, we will only be finding the issues that the user that is running the app has access to, while most likely the other people have been raising issues, have been raising tickets, so we need to get access to those as well, and the user will not have access. So that's why we need to use as app, so to have access to all the issues that have been created by other users as well. Cool. So let's now get back to the manifest for our last exercise, which is the exercise 5. So with our portal header module in Jira Service Management, the message that we see, so the header, is added to every view that is part of Jira Service Management. So if I go to my requests, if you see the banner, if I open a specific request, you see the banner loading, and now it's showing up. And even when I create a request, we see the banner. So this might look like a bit too much seeing the banner in all this context. So the next exercise is about only showing the banner in a specific set of pages. It's a good way to see that in the manifest we can also control the behavior of the modules by defining some properties to them. There is a hint here with the link to the documentation, and what we want to do is we want the banner to only be shown in the help center. So our top page, the page, a page like this, and in the create request page, but we don't want to see it in other pages like the one where we see our tickets. So how do we do this? Let's open the documentation here, and we can see that in the properties there is a property called pages, and that's exactly what we want. So the pages will that we want to this module to be visible are the help center and the create request page. So these two. So I've saved. Let me redeploy the app. And I'll start the tunnel just because I like to always keep it running when I'm developing, and it also helps us to see if the function is being called or not in the different context. Good. So let's refresh our help center where we still expect to see our banner, our header there. Yes, it's still there. The create request. So let's go into the create request option, and we can see some logs. So it's being called, while if I go in the list of my requests, you see that no logging is added, and we don't see the header, and same on an individual ticket. Good. So that was our last exercise. So as a quick recap of what we did, today we added a header to our Jira Service Management portal. We ran some APIs. Let me open them for you. We ran some APIs from our Forge app to retrieve the number of service desks and later on the number of Jira issues that are open in these projects. We updated the permissions as required when running Forge apps based on the REST APIs that we are running. And as a last thing, what we just did is we added a property to our module to restrict the view of this header to just some contexts. So what's next? So if you would like to keep working with Jira Service Management, there are also some additional exercises that you can follow. They are here at the bottom of the JSX file, and the extension exercises are available. The solutions are available in this folder as well. After that, we have an Atlassian community where you can go and check for like what other developers are working on and what they are facing, and you can also ask there for help or simply interact with the other Atlassian developers. I hope this was an interesting session for you, and that you got an app running for Jira Service Management, and I hope that you'll keep building apps using Forge, and goodbye.